I just walked up the hill from Primary to the gondola. I'm going to get on it and go down to the village, but it's my last chance to stand on the mountain. It's a cat behind me. Anyway, this is it. Hey everybody. So, I no longer work at North Star. I still have my ID. I'm probably still in the system. I could go up there and buy an employee meal if I wanted to. Something I've never done. All kinds of things. I'm like, I never skied. never once used this $800+ pass that is a fringe benefit. Anyway, yesterday I shot a video in which I tried to make a point that apparently didn't come through very clearly, as the following response from Dan will illustrate. But, and I haven't rewatched the thing since I listened to it, and in fact I edited it fairly savagely, like just took a big chunk out of the middle, so maybe some of what I thought is in the video isn't really there. But I was basically saying there's a tax attached to cool jobs, or jobs that seem like they would be cool to young people. So, for example, I've, since I was in high school or even junior high school, since I was in elementary school, I wanted to be an artist, but since I was like 13 or so, I wanted to be a cartoonist. And I put in many hours and dollars into learning how to draw. And then I never really used it professionally for a couple decades. And then I had the chance to do the Geb comic strip, first the webcomic and then the comic books. And I discovered that sitting at the drawing board, drawing, like the actual, what I call penciling, the initial sketching stage where I'm laying out the page or I'm laying out the composition of the image, getting the gesture of the character, getting capturing some essence of the character. That is really appealing to me. But then most of the time is, what I would call in the 20th century parlance of comic book production, coloring. Adding tones, drawing backgrounds. I don't enjoy that stuff. And I certainly don't enjoy sitting at the drawing board hour after hour after hour trying to hit a deadline. And what I think young people don't realize, and this isn't a point I tried to make yesterday, but what some people don't realize is that the thing that you enjoy doing as a teenager, you probably won't enjoy doing in your 40s when you're doing it 30, 40 hours a week and you're working on deadline. It's a different headspace and it's not fun. So that wasn't really the point I was trying to make in yesterday's video, though. The point I made in yesterday's video, and I used a bad example because I was talking about snowmaking. Let me talk about ski patrol. If you've ever been skiing, you certainly know ski patrol. If you fall down and, dislocate your knee or whatever, it is ski patrol who's going to show up with, on skis, but pulling a sled, and they're going to put you on it and they're going to take you down the mountain. To work in ski patrol, you have to have all kinds of certifications. First, you got to be a really good skier. You've got to be tested, on your skiing ability and certified. But then you're going to have, I don't know all of the requirements that they have, but basically they're EMTs on skis. They need to have accreditation. They need to have some documents that show that they've been trained. And they do a lot of things. Again, I don't know all the requirements, but I have talked to the ski patrol people, and I know that they sacrifice quite a bit to get those jobs, but they don't pay any more than snowmaking. They don't pay any more than dishwashers. They get paid the exact same amount as the very low status, low skill, low pay jobs at the resort. Why? Because it's a cool job and everybody wants to do it, even, without getting paid commensurately for the amount of qualification that is required to get the job. People want it. The same is true with art. So there are a lot of people now, and in my mind, I can't see them. I'm just reading their text on screen, but I imagine them to be young people who think, who are not currently, either one, not even supporting themselves, or two, they are supporting themselves with a bullshit job, but they are, they have aspirations to be professional artists. And already, I mean, without AI, making a living as a professional artist is hard. And being able to draw or produce imagery is only a portion of the job requirements. You have to be a disciplined small business person, small business owner. You're not only an artist, but you are the artist's manager. You are the artist's agent. You are the artist's accountant. You are the artist's, web designer. You do all of these different things, most of which are very mundane and, smack of the typical normie jobs that young creative types who, are self-identified artists despise. But, you get drawn into it. Like, well, let me read Dan's comment. Dan writes, congratulations, you're probably done with your laugh shift snowmaking as I write this. Well, I hadn't even started it when you wrote it, Dan, but I'm over it now. I'm finished now. Dan continues. In this video, I'm most interested in the description you have written underneath it. How does the system exact a tax? Wasn't the internet supposed to free people to be more expressive than they were in the pre-internet world? Is it that there has been a net increase in content but no increase in meaning? Has there always been that kind of tax? I've benefited greatly from people's ideas that I only could have been exposed to because of the internet, yours included. Okay, so first, I've lived my whole adult life basically online. I remember when I was a grad student, somebody asked me to come talk to incoming freshmen, and this is in the early 90s, or I guess mid 90s. And, one piece of advice that I gave to them was, like, at the time, you could get a university email address, but it wasn't issued to you automatically. You had to go to a special building on the, far reaches of campus, someplace most people would never be going, definitely out of the way, down into the basement, and then you have to sign up for your email address. And it's just a long string. It's your student number at, the name of the college. And I told these young kids, 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds coming in, nobody's going to direct you to do this, but you should do this. Go down to that building, sign up, get an email address, and get online. Now, in the mid-90s, this is gibberish to most people. And these kids looked at me like I had just told them to go, sacrifice a goat or something. But I was online. I was using Usenet. I was on listserv groups, and it was because I was online so early that I was able to get that job at Amazon in 1996. I had been corresponding with an early Microsoft employee. In fact, the primary architect of the first Microsoft Word, the first iteration of Microsoft Word. And I figured that he was going to get me a job at Microsoft if I moved to Seattle. And I moved to Seattle, and he sent me down to talk to Jeff Bezos. Down at Amazon.com. When Amazon.com, it was out of his garage at that point, but it was still just one warehouse down in South Seattle in the SoDo district, and one floor of one office building, just about a block from the Pike Place Market in downtown Seattle. And since then, I made good money working at Amazon early on, and then in 2006, I discovered podcasting, and almost as soon as I discovered it, I was doing it. And so, yeah, I've lived my whole adult life online. All of my, not all, I guess, but most of my long-term professional relationships were started online. Most of my, long-term creative correspondences were started online. Obviously, all the interviews, not all, I've done many face-to-face interviews, but a great many interviews, most, I would say, have been recorded with Skype or Zoom or StreamYard now is what I use. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a control life, lived offline to compare to the one that I lived online. I only have the online life. All right, so I'm going to go back and take some of Dan's questions individually. The point being here that, is my life better for having lived so much of it online? I don't know. This is just the life that I've got, But Dan writes, in this video, I'm most interested in the description you have written underneath. How does the system exact a tax? Hollywood, for me, it was comic books, but, Hollywood, movies, sports. This is not my thing, but I know a lot of young people and their parents are really enthralled with this idea that their kid is so good at some sport that, with the right training, with the right extra pushing and whatnot, that they can get a college scholarship and maybe go on to play professional sports and make a shit ton of money. I would say watch the documentary Hoop Dreams about that, or Spike Lee did a film. What was it? He's Got Game, which really delves into the seduction of promising, young, mostly black men by sports agents. That's just a portion of the film. But by having, these celebrated figures, artists, actors, musicians, who are held up, as not just talented people who deserve lots of recognition, but people who are adored, people who have coteries of followers, people who have fans. Uh, in my youth, it was the rock star. The rock star, you got to travel around, play that great music, be up on stage, feel that enormous rush, and then afterwards, go back to the backstage, and there's all these women waiting for you. That was the dream. Having a media system which creates these personalities, holds them up, and distorts their actual experience, because Chris Cornell, Kurt Cobain, so many of these people end up offing themselves, either deliberately in those two instances, or just through the lifestyle. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix. It's a long list, of people who have passed out on their back and thrown up in their mouths and suffocated or OD'd or, whatever. But yeah, the system which creates these archetypes that so many people, so many young people will sacrifice enormously, before the age 25, before the age when they really have the cognitive capacity to make dispassionate, critical evaluations of their options and make the right choice, the sensible choice. They get seduced. They get seduced into a situation where, they spend a lot of their own time, a lot of their own resources, a lot of their own money acquiring the skills, hopefully to compete with all the other people who, have the same aspirations, and break into this, this carefully guarded market. That predates the internet. That is old, but the internet has cranked it up, because, when I was in high school, I didn't know anybody else who wanted to be a cartoonist. I knew a few people who liked to draw. I was in the art club, took a lot of art classes. Very few people had any professional aspirations toward being a performer, a musician, a dancer, actor, artist. And now with social media, I think a much larger percentage of youth culture. And also, when I was a kid, geeky stuff, science fiction stuff, superhero stuff, that was all relegated to the fringes. Normal people despised, or, at least held in contempt, people like me who are interested in that stuff. And now all that stuff is mainstream. And I think with it comes the mentality of, hey, you can participate in the production of this stuff, if you want to. So I think a much wider net has been cast by the cyber enhanced system to draw in the young people. Now, the upshot is, when you're trying to get into this market, you will work for cheap. And employers and clients know this. And they take advantage of it. And you will pour your youthful vigor and optimism and idealism into, a hard and financially unrewarding career path. And, maybe you really make it. Maybe, like me, you make enough money to sort of limp along, or maybe at some point you do the sensible thing and say, hey, I'm going to go get a normal job that pays normal wages and, build some semblance of a normal life. Now, if you wait till you're 54, like I have, it becomes, a less palatable option, less workable. For me, just going and getting a straight job would mean taking maybe not a pay cut, but it wouldn't be any great advantage over what I'm getting now, because, I'd be starting at the bottom with nothing, as I did here at North Star. Anybody could come and apply to be a snowmaker, and you'd probably get hired. The question is, how long would you last? it's hard, and it's easy to quit, and lots of people did. There was a lot more people at the beginning in the snowmaking department than there was last night when I was there. Most people have moved on, but at the very beginning, there's a high attrition rate. A lot of people just said, "Fuck this, not for me." Anyway, that's an aside. Have I covered all of Dan's questions? He says, "Okay, here's the hard part." He says, "I've benefited greatly from people's ideas that I only could have been exposed to because of the internet, yours included." Well, one, no. I mean, yeah, maybe ideas are gestating and evolving faster because so many more people are participating in the creation of them and the mutation of them as they imperfectly copy them and pass them on. But all of the really important ideas that have guided me, that I really see as valuable, that I see as things that have enhanced my life greatly. They haven't come from online. They come from books. People have been hashing out these ideas for hundreds of years now. Not in the strictly technical sense of modern information technology, but all the things that are important to people about getting along with other people, making your way in the world, enjoying this life as you're living it. People have been wrestling with that for thousands of years, and I think most of the really workable ideas have made it to print, and you could have had a very good life, a very satisfying, intellectually challenging, rich life in a pre-internet world. You just, you didn't live that life because you were born when you were born. And I've benefited greatly intellectually, I guess, from the connections that I've made online, people that I've talked to for the podcast, that sort of thing. But in my case, the cost is very quantifiable. It's very easy to lay out. Like, my attachment to this vision of being, this celebrated public intellectual via the podcast was more important to me in the moment than making the necessary sacrifices to keep my marriage together. And as a result, my kids grew up. I was basically the fun uncle to my kids. I didn't really have any say in how they were raised or where they lived or, what environment they mostly spent their time in. All I could control was the days on the weekends when they were with me, when they were young. And then later when I left the area, the occasional weekend trip up to where they live. I didn't want that. I did not want that. That was a sacrifice that I made basically through inaction and stubbornness. But as I responded via text, in the comments below Dan's comment, I'm about to turn 55. I don't have a career, other than podcasting, really. I don't have a house. I don't have a car. I have a very meager income. I don't have any savings. I don't have any workable plans for retirement. I don't have a significant other. Don't have a fucking dog. No, I could get a dog, but then that sort of anchors me to where the dog is, and I want to do some traveling. Now, I mean, the upside is I'm 55 and I have nothing holding me down. I can go to Mexico if I want. I could go to the Philippines if I could swing it financially. I can drop everything and go house sit for a friend in Santa Fe for 3 weeks on zero notice. I have that flexibility. But in terms of what I've given up in that list that I just read off to you, I didn't mention healthcare. I've spent most of my adult life with no access to affordable healthcare. Just always on the knife edge. If I have a major health event that I have to go to the emergency room for without insurance, I'll be paying that debt forever. So for half a second, I was on Obamacare when I was in New York. I had Medicaid in Vermont for COVID, but now I'm just, swinging without a net again. Gosh, almost 20 minutes now. Have I answered the question? I don't know. Dan, you can tell me. But recapping, young people will choose idealism over practicality, when they are seduced in their teens and early 20s by the prospect of a career with meaning. Meaning. Is there more content and no increase in meaning? I don't know. That's probably for another video. Defining meaning, saying what provides it, what counts as meaning. That's more than I can wrestle with here. The ultimate point and the ultimate tie back to the AI generated imagery discussion is that young people think that AI is sabotaging their prospects for earning a living as an artist. Your prospects were always very dim. And there is an ecosystem of employers who recognize that you got into art because you valued meaning and romantic notions of how you're going to earn a living over practical considerations. And they are going to prey upon that systematically without even thinking about it. Without even making a conscious decision to do so, they are participating in a system that is built upon the irrationality of young people and their ambitions for how they're going to spend their lives and how they're going to make their livings. That predates AI, that predates the internet. The internet accelerated it, made it worse. AI is going to accelerate it, make it worse. But yeah, if you love art, do art. But if you think that's your career path and that that's going to bring you recognition and status and appreciation, good luck. And when I say good luck, I mean think about it. And think about if there are other ways that you can meet those needs that you think, a sort of micro celebrity as an a internet famous artist or a Instagram famous artist will get you. Because really, at the end of the day, we do the things that we do because we want to feel a certain way. We want to feel secure. We want to feel appreciated. We want to feel as though we have executed and discharged all of our moral obligations, to our families, to our society. You want to believe that other people view you positively and appreciate you for, what you can do and how you are unique and how you are different from other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just recognize that it's a vulnerability that the system, in quotes, has evolved to prey upon. You are its resource, and your idealism is its resource. And it strip mines that resource. And it'll leave you in middle aged, you know, irritated, resentful, burnt out. It is the idea that you need to make your living doing the thing that you love fails to take into account the fact that when it becomes an obligation, a financial obligation to do the thing that you love, you're likely to stop loving it quite so much, and it will become a chore. And if you're going to make your living doing unpleasant chores, they might as well be things that were unpleasant to start with, and not things, and not the ruined husk of something that you used to love. Okay, 22 minutes now. I'm done. Talk to you later.